right, hello, and welcome back to the Left Shew Politics Podcast. This is Jeremy, and I'm joined by the one and only Rick Shew. We have just watched the fabulous, game-changing, game-ending debate between the final, thank God, the final, of 3 debates between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and I know that I'm excited. Rick, I assume that you're excited after what we just watched?
I am thrilled, and yet I'm disturbed. I'm happy, yet I'm sad. I'm celebratory. Thank you. Celebratory. I'm not a celebrity, although maybe sometimes I wish I was. I guess I don't know.
Right.
But I'm just really glad this is over.
I'm glad that it is done, and it could not be more done than after that debate. I mean, I know we've got another 3 weeks to go before the actual election, but that was fini. That was scene, game, set, match. That was game over. I mean, it was a pretty masterful debate by Hillary Clinton, I think.
It absolutely was. Now, before we get into that, because I actually have a little bit of a bone to pick with you that I think our listeners will have a little fun with on that note. But let's start real fast by giving credit where credit is due.
To me, I hope.
Always for you, Jeremy. Chris Wallace. Who would have thunk it?
He did a good job.
He did a fantastic job. And for a Fox News host, now listen, he and Shepard Smith have always been sort of the sane guys. Like, they're the ones that they can claim fair and balanced, and they can point at them, and you're like, yeah, okay, here and there, I get it. And it's always just sort of a disguise, right? Like, okay, fine. Right. Those guys give like a fair and balanced analysis about 14 minutes out of the day. Fine, whatever. But he really, not only was he good, he was by far the best moderator out of this entire election.
He absolutely was. I posted
from
that.
the primaries all the way through everything.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I was handling the posts on our Facebook page, and by the way, if you guys aren't following our Facebook page, you can find it on Facebook at Left Shew Politics. All those posts that evening were yours truly. And I gave Chris Wallace props. I said I thought he did a great job, and somebody else chimed in and said he thought he did a great job as well. And the comment we got was interesting. It was pretty funny, actually. The guy said, it seems like everything Chris Wallace does is part of an interview to be on another network, which was pretty good.
Well, they're paying him a lot of money because without him, they literally could not wave the fair and balanced flag. Like, they just couldn't do it.
Well, the Megyn Kelly's gotten a lot better in the last year or two, actually. So I'd say Megyn Kelly and Chris Wallace are sort of trying to wave the flag of bipartisanship or non-bias, but by and large...
Well, here's the thing on that. First of all, I think she's gorgeous, she's brilliant, she's everything.
Chris Wallace is gorgeous too, Rick.
Chris Wallace is gorgeous.
He's
absolutely.
His
father was. His eyebrows were forced to be reckoned with. But in terms of Megyn Kelly, listen, we can talk about the bar being so low with Trump that no matter what it is that has to do with Trump, if you're just better than him, then you're great. In this kind of weird Trump world that we're living in right now, because until he's not a nominee, we kind of are.
Right.
And then he launches Trump TV 2017. We'll still kind of be in his grasp a little bit, I guess, but that's a separate conversation. But the fact that Megyn Kelly has pushed back against an empirical sexist is, to me, I'm glad she is, but at the same time, I don't want to have a thunderous applause where that's concerned. Nevertheless, let's bring this full circle. I don't want to spend too much time with this, but just a round of applause here for Chris Wallace and his...
He did a great job, and I think that the format he had was a little bit... It was different than the other two formats that we saw, so I think he had a little more room to play with. He had we'll ask Hillary, we'll ask Donald, and we have an open discussion for 10 minutes. So there was a little bit more of a sort of room to play within there, but I think that he handled it really well, and he did a good job not really interrupting either candidate unless they were just really going off the rails and going in a completely direction, with both Hillary and Donald did, to be fair, and he was able to rein them both in. So I think that ultimately I agree with you. Of all the debates that I watched, and I watched pretty much all of the debates, I think Chris Wallace really did the best job as a whole.
He absolutely did. And, in the first 25 minutes of the debate itself was an actual debate.
It was, yeah. And Trump seemed like a human being.
Trump seemed like a human being. And it's not like the man doesn't have some valid points. Of course he does. 98% of what he says is reprehensible nonsense. But he does have some good populist.
Sure, some of the things he says are very agreeable. I agree with him on term limits. I agree that the tax code is overcomplicated. I mean, the way that he wants to go about correcting it, I find total nonsense. But everybody gets a few things right.
Right, exactly. But what's the old saying? A broken clock is right twice a day?
Twice a day, yeah.
Well, Trump was right 2 or 3 times in this debate.
Absolutely.
Good for him. Now, 25 minutes into it, that's when it went south.
It came off the rails. As soon as they started talking about immigration, it was over. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he's just so allergic to Mexicans that even talking about them sends him into a fit or what that was, but I was actually kind of worried about the first 15, 20 minutes of the debate, and then all of a sudden, I think I texted you, I said, okay, he's coming a little bit undone now, and it was downhill from there, and it went south fast. And where I was, we were laughing, we were having a good time, everybody had a glass of wine, we were watching, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that, and there were comments about Hillary as well, but Trump, it was almost like he was putting on a Carnival Barker sideshow. I mean, it was just plain entertaining, and I can imagine that in places where he's got substantial support, that people were in bars like cheering and egging on the things that he was doing, and he's interrupting, and he's saying she's a horrible person and all of these things, and I can imagine that people there were cheering, but where we were, it was just pure unadulterated entertainment. It was entertainment, and you know what he didn't have, and it hurt him? When I say it hurt him, I mean it was something that just sort of. You're drinking? I am. Are you drinking alcohol? I want to be honest with everybody. I have to be crazy. I have to be up crazy early in the morning, and I'm not even worried about it because I'm having a good time. I'm enjoying talking about the debate. I was having a good time where I was. I've had a glass of wine. I had a couple of beers. I had a bourbon when I got home, and I've moved on to tequila. So you're drinking tequila. I'm drinking tequila. I like liquors on the rocks. So bourbons, tequilas, occasionally a rum. That's my go-to. And just so everybody knows, Jeremy is on the West Coast. Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. Down here in Dallas, Tejas, and he's in Los Angeles, and that's where we are geographically. But we are kindred spirits that are both from Texas. We spent a little time together in Dallas when we both lived there, and actually a brief amount of time together in Los Angeles when we both lived here for approximately 13 days. But somebody decided they needed to go back to Texas, which is a decision I doubt that I will ever make. But where I was watching the debate in West Hollywood. I was watching it with mostly women. There were 3 women where I was and 1 other guy. All of the women are Ivy League educated attorneys. The other guy, we had two white people, including myself. We had 2 black people and an Asian, so we were fairly representative, which is pretty much what any room in West Hollywood is going to look like. It's going to be pretty much a rainbow coalition. But if I can just say, at the point, we were all having fun throughout the debate, and it was a good time, and everybody was like, oh, I can't believe you said that, oh, I can't believe you said that. But at the point at the end of the debate, in the 89th minute, when Chris Wallace was asking them to make closing statements or whatever happened, and she was talking, and he just blurted out that such a nasty woman comment. There were loud, audible gasps from the entire room when that happened. It wasn't just entertaining. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe those words just came out of his mouth. Well, I'm confused on that. I don't know why. There's nothing this man can say or do that shocks me. When he made that reference several months ago in the primary, he's like, and I'm going to do a really horrible Trump impression here. He's like, I could shoot people on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose any supporters. Right. I mean, dude, listen, was that hyperbolic? Why was that not campaign ending? Was that heightened reality? Right. I know that. I think he kind of thinks that way. And quite frankly, I think 36% of the people that follow him apparently do as well. And I will refuse this notion that they're just choosing the lesser of 2 evils. The 36% of people that love this guy love him. I mean, they love him. And quite frankly, the passion that he has for that core people, I wish that Hillary had. She doesn't have that level of passion from anyone. She's got a smaller core that are that passionate about her. But in Texas, you may not see it as much, and it's definitely not presented online or on the television. But I definitely encountered people here in Texas that are very passionate, staunch supporters of her and have been for a long, long time. I recognize that, but that's anecdotal. I'm talking about the level of passion that's just sort of this broad swath of people that are going to the polls across the country. She's going to win this election, especially after tonight. We're going to get into that more in a moment. What I'm saying is that I'm just trying to give him a little bit of credit. Now, out of that 35%, 15, 20% of those people are probably in that basket of deplorables, right? But there is passion for him. For her, it's a little bit more cerebral and a little more analytical, and that's fine. That's great. And at the end of the day, she has more people that are going to vote for her anyway, probably overwhelmingly. But I don't want to get too off topic here, but
it's kind of fun radio, I guess, is that you've kind of made 2 Texas jabs. I just want to make sure our listeners know I didn't come back to Texas because I think Texas is a cooler state than California. I came back to Texas for personal reasons, and guess what? I have a beautiful wife and 2 daughters because of that. I'm glad I did. Now, on another note,
I'm glad you did too, really.
We are also right now, and this is the random ass, we're just going to freestyle this podcast. I hope everybody
can
follow
a 5-drink freestyle. Is what we're
right.
doing.
And by the way, I'm drinking some wine, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that as well. But anyway, so we are talking about Texas right now being a true battleground state.
It's possible. I actually saw on 538.com, the Nate Silver page, Hillary Clinton has a 17% chance of winning Texas, and Trump only has an 11% chance of winning Pennsylvania, which is a must-win state for him. So she has a better chance of winning what should be a Republican stronghold than he has of winning an actual swing state.
It's remarkable. And then for people that don't know the demographics in Texas, here in Dallas, where I live, in Dallas County, Obama won 2008 and 2012. And also down in Travis County as well, which is Austin. And I think Houston is catching up. But you look at sort of what has happened in terms of the major newspapers. I mean, the Houston Chronicle and the Dallas Morning News both endorse Hillary. That's huge. But I want to also remind everybody of a couple of things. One, Jimmy Carter won the state of Texas in 1976 against sitting President Gerald Ford. So it's been done before and with very different demographics. And then we had this nice little lady named Ann Richards as governor.
Awesome, yeah.
And then we have the Castro brothers. So there's battleground Texas. There's a movement here. I didn't expect it to get this close this early, but who knows what might happen. And I'm interested to hear, their analysis of 17%, and I don't want to doubt them. I don't want to praise them when their analysis is in my favor, and I don't want to doubt them when it's not, but it just seems really low considering she's within the margin of error.
It's a possibility. But, they have whole models and metrics that they
absolutely.
And Nate Silver is
I like
than
science.
I am, so.
I like science and I like math. I'm not a Trump supporter. Like, how can he be losing in the polls, man?
Right.
He had a bunch of people at his rally yesterday.
Yeah, I saw on Drudge Report he won that debate.
Let's get to, you know what? That's a good segue. The debate that we've really gotten off topic here. The debate. So we talked about the first 25 minutes and then it went south.
It went south quick.
So,
yeah, and I think.
So Jeremy, give me your feelings on this thing. What was the point in the debate where you knew that Hillary had this in the bag? And by the way, as this recording stands right now, and it is 11:11. Ooh, it's 11:11. Crazy. It's 11:11 p.m. Central Standard Time. Just a couple hours, just like an hour after the debate. This will probably, when you're listening to this, will be 24 hours from now, maybe longer. As it stands right now, the one scientific poll that I've seen is from YouGov, and it's Hillary Clinton won the debate, 49%. Trump's 39%. It's a 10-point swing. So, and that's a scientific poll. That's not a come vote online and log in from different devices 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So tell me, what point in the debate did you say to yourself, "We got this. Let's bring it home. We got."
Well, it's going to sound ridiculous, but honestly, the point in the debate when I knew it was going downhill was as soon as Trump started sniffling. It's demonstrating that he's lost some sort of control. He's maintained a certain amount of aplomb up to that point, and he's just lost it. And all of a sudden, he's just ranting, and he's going on a 3 or 4 sentence rant, and then he pauses, and he goes, and then he goes on another 3 or 4 sentence rant, and he pauses, and he goes, and at that point, I knew, I was like, looks like he's got the drips. I'm not going to speculate. I'm a personal trainer. I try not to guess who at the gym is using steroids, but I can sort of intellectualize and know I can look at people and think, oh, you've gained 20 pounds in the last month. You're probably on steroids, but I don't accuse anybody of it, right? I'm not going to accuse Trump of using cocaine. He may be using cocaine. I'm quite confident Trump's used cocaine at some time in the past. I don't know that he's used it for this debate, but I do know that the sniffling seems to be sort of a non-verbal tick that demonstrates that he's losing control, because I think that he genuinely doesn't even know that he's doing it. After the first debate, there was all the sniffling, and he came out afterwards and he was like, there was no sniffling. And I was like, how can you watch that debate and not see that you're sniffling like a crazy, ridiculous amount?
It's bizarre. And by the way, I don't want to interrupt the sniffling because I find it humorous. By the way, I'm not actually doing cocaine. I really don't know, nor do I really care. I think he's an idiot regardless. But this just came in over the wire live. Breaking news, everyone, on Left Shoe Politics. CNN poll, the other scientific poll, 52% Hillary Clinton, 39% Donald Trump. Wow.
Right. I think
that's a decisive victory.
We've talked in previous debates about what his ceiling is and how her ceiling is higher. There are a lot of people who don't like Hillary and are never going to vote for Hillary regardless. But she's got her floor rather is lower than his ceiling. So his ceiling previously has been in the 42-43% range, and I think it's actually going down. I think that it's possible he won't get more than about 39-40% of the popular vote.
Let's talk about the debate, and I think you're right. Let's talk about very specifically about the debate. It was broken up into 6 topics, correct?
Ish.
For me, when it got into abortion, that was not enough people are talking about that. You had Donald Trump essentially say, I'm going to appoint pro-life judges, and we're going to overturn Roe v. Wade, and we're going to turn it back to the states.
Well, he said it would happen automatically, which is just nonsense. But absolutely, I think that
everything he says is nonsense. But let's just take the in-game analysis here, like what he's proposing will ultimately happen and inevitably happen. I am rather stunned that he went so bold with that in the general election. And
no candidate has really ever been as straightforward about it as that.
No, not George Bush, not Mitt Romney, who's Mormon, and they're very against abortion. That was I stood up. I was sitting down. I looked over at my wife, and of course she's fuming. She's fuming. Right. And by the way, my wife used to love Donald Trump. Celebrity Apprentice Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, the character is different than Donald Trump. The character,
she just loved, and my wife's, she's a businesswoman and a banker, and she just, to be honest with you, when he first started running, she's like, you know what, I can actually understand why people are getting behind him, and I don't know, babe, I've got to take a close look at him. And that lasted about 2 weeks, and she loathes him as much as I do, as much as you
about
do.
As long as it takes to take a close
right,
look.
But she's a businesswoman, and we're raising 2 kids, and we have a mortgage, we have a bar, we have a rental property, we're overextended, this is first world problems, I get it, but I'm saying that still everything's relative. And she finds him horrifying. And when he said that, it's like her head spun around. To me, that was the game changer. I went, he's done.
Yeah, women do not
you cannot have that in 2016. I don't care what your view of abortion is, and I just want to say this. If you're a man, I barely give a shit what your opinion of abortion is. I don't mean that to be rude. I don't. I'm just going to say this. As men, if we could get pregnant, this would not even be a topic.
Yeah, you get abortions at Starbucks.
There would be a drive-through abortion clinic on every street corner in America. And so the Mike Huckabees and the religious fanatics, I just don't care. When a woman talks about abortion, I don't care if she's the most pro-life person on the planet, she deserves to have that voice.
It's her body, yeah.
So, it's her body. She's a woman. And whether she's ever gave birth or not, she deserves to have a voice. Men, we barely do.
I agree with you. And honestly, the abortion topic is something that I always feel just slightly uncomfortable talking about, simply because it's not something that I have a chip in the game in. Obviously, if I got some woman pregnant, I would want to have some level of communication with her about what was going to happen with that pregnancy. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not something that I have any control or say over. The same thing makes me a little bit uncomfortable, like with the sexual assault allegations that have happened and the conversation about sexual abuse and all the women coming forward and, the allegations of victim shaming and innocent until proven guilty and all of those different things, because there's a whole lot of stuff that's sort of muddled up in there. And it makes me a little bit uncomfortable to talk about it, because it's not something that I necessarily have to deal with in any real respect. So I just sort of defer all those comments to those among us who have the vaginas, because that's where that is where that's important. And it's not like they get to make those decisions. They get to talk about how that conversation happens, and I'm not going to question the way any victim comes forward or what they say. I agree with the total innocent until proven guilty, and I agree that there's a lot of complicated issues there with when somebody makes an accusation and how do you deal with that accusation and what goes on with that accusation. However, ultimately, I'm comfortable sort of debating that topic in a philosophical term, but I have no real visceral stake in that game, so it's hard for me to feel comfortable really communicating what is the right thing to do.
No, and I don't either, in a sense, and it's a two-part thing for me. I have 2 kids, and they're both girls. I'm a father of 2 daughters. They're very young, but they will be women. That's part of how that works. And I'm okay with that. I could have 5 more kids, and they could be all girls. I love being a father of daughters. With that said, it is it really hits home when you have daughters. to think that somebody in government could dictate that for my kids. And I don't like it. I'm not comfortable with it. And that's between my daughters and their doctor, their body, their brain, their soul, and me if they're of age.
Yeah, it's actual
or the appropriate age for dad to be in the middle of it. So I have skin in the game in that regard, and that's obviously a lot of skin. But I don't like talking about it because I have a lot of women friends that are very pro-life, and I do not argue with them because I don't have a right to. I just don't. I would defer that to my wife, who's pro-choice. Like you jump in and chime in on this one. I'm out. Because when a woman talks about abortion, I shut up and listen. I don't care what her position is. I listen because they deserve to have their voice said on that.
Okay, we're kind of
but that's my turning point
as feminists at this point. I think that.
Well, it's not about being feminist. It's about.
I totally agree with everything you're saying. I'm just saying, people who are listening are listening to two middle-aged white dudes ramble on about abortion.
Middle-aged.
You're middle-aged.
I don't know what you're talking about. So moving on. So that was my turning point, was the abortion, and then as the debate went on, you saw increasingly, and you alluded to this earlier, just him becoming more and more.
He became more manic. He became more animated. Like, if you watch the first 20 minutes of the debate, he's just sort of staring straight forward, looking right at the camera. His eyes are kind of lidded over. He's nodding occasionally, but mostly he's just staring. He's literally, you can see the effort of him trying to maintain some control and some ability to not just lash out and not just lean into the microphone and be like, wrong, and at some point, and like I said, it's when those sniffles started, it just is like, it's gone, and he loses complete control over it. And I think that that's exactly what people mean when they say he lacks the temperament that's necessary to be president, is that at some point, he can be diplomatic, he can be rational, I suppose, up to a certain point, and then after that point, it's all over. It's not even like there's a gradient in between. It's not even like a soft rolling downhill. It's like he's cruising along, and then he goes off a cliff.
Yeah, he does, and he did. And as the debate went on, and everything you just said is true, he starts like aggressively moving the mic, and he drinks water more awkwardly than Marco Rubio.
That is weird, man.
It's weird, man. Like, what are you doing, dude? That's weird.
She didn't take a sip the whole debate, right? Am I right about that?
No. She wiped her nose a couple of times. There was a couple of jokes about her doing blow, too, which were kind of funny. But, my God, they're standing, to give them both credit, to stand there. And hey, on that note, what was up with them standing there? Typically, traditionally, over the last, decade or so, that debate has always been at a table, the last debate, where it's kind of foreign policy driven, right? That's always been the case.
I remember Obama and Romney sitting at the table. I don't remember necessarily that was the third debate, but... Well,
the same thing with McCain, and I believe that was Bush and Kerry as well. Regardless, it doesn't matter.
I'm assuming that was something that was negotiated during the planning stages, because the format of these debates had been set for a year.
Yeah, I think that Trump would being like a caged animal sitting there. He's bad enough. His strongest performance was the second debate, and a lot of that had to do, in my opinion, with him being able to move around.
And he's got some outlet
and
for
get rid of that nervous energy, and he has the temperament. I said this on Twitter for our brand on Left Shew, and I wasn't kidding. I'm like, I wouldn't let this guy coach my kids' soccer team with his temperament, and I mean that. I'm not trying to be funny when I say that. I would not let my kids have a coach like that. That might be semi-appropriate for a high school football coach. I don't know. I don't think it is even that. But his temperament is terrible. Where do we go with this? So we talk about the moment for you and I both. We talk about the sniffles for you, the abortion thing for me. And then as the thing went on, he became increasingly more unhinged. And what I also really loved in terms of her is that she didn't try to shove it down his throat, but it was just so apparent, her foreign policy knowledge versus his.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when she talked about where places were geographically and where they stood on what border,
how today's strategy related to tomorrow's strategy.
Right. And he's standing over there looking like a moron. And it was just so matter-of-factly because she just knows. And then when she compared the resumes.
Oh, that was
awesome.
Talk about that was a high point for her.
But, in the midst of all the madness, right, what you had a woman standing there that was presidential. That was an adult.
She was composed. She was dignified. She maintained her sense of decorum throughout the entire debate. The early numbers that I've seen online are that Trump interrupted her 37 times and Hillary only interrupted 5 times, which is really, that was probably her strategy going in, was just, I'm going to say what I need to say. When I get the questions I need, I'm going to answer as well as I can and pivot to the talking points that I need to get out, and I'm just going to let him ramble. And that's exactly what she did. That's exactly what he did, and he hurt himself by doing it.
Absolutely. He hurt himself by doing it. And then let's get to the final nail in the coffin. Holy crap. Now, there's a lot of other points to this debate. The way she handled things with the women aspect was just brilliant. There was just the way she pinned the whole Putin thing on him, and the way she was able to pivot with the WikiLeaks. Because that is a pivot. There are some embarrassing revelations in there in terms of WikiLeaks, when he started going, and I saw what Podesta was saying about you and what Bernie Sanders says about you, and she's like, well, that's fine, you can say that all you want, but Bernie Sanders is the one.
Right, and can we be honest, like everybody has two different faces that they present to the world, right? There's things that you do in public, you talk to this person differently than you talk to that person, your private communication is different than your public communication. Everybody does that. It would be totally embarrassing.
Every CEO, everybody.
Like if somebody suddenly started publishing the conversations that I had with my girlfriend after I got off the phone with you, talking about you or, Malloy or anybody else that's involved in our podcast, 90% of the information is glowing, but there's always that one little thing that somebody says that could be misconstrued as somebody said this, somebody did that, or whatever, and it makes it seem embarrassing. But ultimately, these are internal conversations that are meant to be kept internal.
Internal conversations that are meant to be internal. And by the way, that's also why I have never, and I said this from the very beginning, I have never really even been comfortable with the Trump video being released with his pussy-grabbing comments. I'm glad it was, because I think he's an absolute threat to our country, our democracy, who we are as a people. I still wish it just would have been done in a different way. And I'm certainly not comfortable with private emails being hacked by a foreign government to try to sway an election. Sure. And for anybody that thinks that Donald Trump is tougher than Hillary Clinton, first of all, open your eyes. You're a fool.
You just watch that debate.
Secondly,
that's not true.
Exactly. And why in the world would you think that this thug that's running Russia, that wants to somehow relive the Soviet Union heyday, wants him to be president? There's a reason for that, and it's
Absolutely.
not from
and can we just talk about
it's to benefit
Russia
him
for just one moment? I mean, I was hoping that
talk
Hillary would bring this up during the debate, but Trump kept talking about the moves that Russia was making and how he was outsmarting Obama, how he had outsmarted Clinton, and how he was positioning himself in all these great ways. But Russia is literally collapsing. Their economy is collapsing. They are on the receiving end of some of the toughest sanctions going in the entire world right now out of the UN, led by the United States. 14 million people last year fell out of Russia's middle class to the bottom. And we're not talking about a middle class that's even as strong as the U.S. middle class. Their economy is not doing well. They are completely isolated. Everybody looks at Putin as an aggressor and the bad guy. They're not doing anything that makes them stronger in the world. They are just trying to be the bully, and it is not working for them. Putin is really failing his country by trying to relitigate these old conflicts, and he's screwing his own country up, and within another 5-8 years max, Russia is going to collapse again exactly the way that it did at the end of the Cold War.
Absolutely. And what we have right now is we have a person who is a witting participant in his shenanigans. And quite frankly, I'm not convinced that there isn't some sort of ongoing dialogue with the Russian government and the Trump campaign. And maybe it's not the Trump campaign officially, but I certainly just have this hunch. Yeah. And I want to be...
I don't know. I'm certain there's some business dealings that are happening over there that are mitigating Trump's policies and his positions.
Yeah, but how does Roger... But Roger Stone sure seems to have a lot to say about these things before they come out.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that both Russia and the Trump campaign sometimes say things before they actually come out in the WikiLeaks. That happens.
Exactly.
I think that probably... I don't want to go so far as to say there's some specific and deliberate collusion between the Trump campaign and the Putin administration.
That's fair. I don't want to be on record.
Yeah, however, I think that Trump is an easily manipulated person through flattery. I think that Trump is not as smart as he thinks that he is. I think that Trump is one of those people who comes into a room and thinks he's the smartest person in the room, but isn't, and that makes him easily manipulable and easily controlled.
Sure. Like, Putin is
Putin is I would say most rooms, Putin is
Absolutely.
probably the smartest person in the room. He's incredibly well trained. He's incredibly well experienced. He knows what he's doing. Trump does not know what he's doing. He doesn't have any understanding of foreign affairs or geopolitics, and he responds to flattery.
Okay, give me your top 2 favorite moments of the debate.
Yeah, the point where Hillary was reiterating their resumes was excellent. And then the she's such a nasty woman comment. I got to put that in as favorite, even though, Hillary didn't say it and it was a slam against her. I think that that's the point that really codifies the election and sends her into the Oval Office.
I posed the question myself and I can barely answer it myself. And I think for me, it was just a collection of so many nuances. And what I would look over my wife and kind of high five is when he would just start going off in these nasty tangents that he does, and you would just the split screen thing is just fucking brilliant. And you're looking at her and she's just smiling like, this guy sucks, man. He's ridiculous. He's ridiculous.
His
and
eyes,
I love
looking from side to side and leaning into the mic and going wrong.
I mean, dude, I can't wait for Alec Baldwin. Bill Maher tweeted, he was like, that was Alec Baldwin, right? Was that?
It was another
real?
Great moment was when Trump was going on and on about Russia and how he had no respect for Hillary Clinton, and she was like, that's because he would rather have a puppet in the presidency of the United States. That was a good moment.
Oh, you're a puppet. You're a puppet. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to tell you one of my favorite moments. I'm going to pull up our friend and co-host Zaki Hussan, who will be joining us again on our podcast. Oh, and by the way, we also should say that our partner in crime, Michael Malloy, is in Florida on business, and I called him to see if he could jump on this, and he's just tied up with work. So just want everybody to know that that's where he's at, and didn't want anybody to think anything weird. But in the meantime, I want to read what Zaki Hussan said in terms of his last closing tweet. And this, to me, other than just all the collective nuance moments, is my favorite, and Zaki encapsulates it in this tweet. Clinton, in quotes, here's what I'll do, talking about closing statements. Trump, here's why she sucks. And that, to me, was my favorite part. When Chris Wallace put them on the spot, she was able to look in the camera and tell you why she should be president. I have a plan. All he could do was try to convince you why she shouldn't. And that's a very significant difference. I can tell you why I should be. I'm going to try to tell you why I should be by virtue of telling you why she shouldn't be. It's not good enough. Sorry, dude. That's just not how this works.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that it was spontaneous was pretty brilliant. Now, if I were him and I could have advised him on that, it would have been a pretty sick line. And he said, what, did Donna Brazil feed you that before you went on? That could have taken the momentum away from that moment, but that would have been about it. That didn't happen, and she solidified the presidency today. So now here's the question. Let's go into the closing part of this. What happens now? So I don't think it's a matter of her winning. It's a matter of how big she's going to win, and then what happens.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you.
What are your predictions?
It's hard. It's hard to predict.
Oh, wait. Wait. Hold on. Before we get to that, I want to make it closing, because as much as randomness as this may seem to our listeners, if you guys really pay attention, we're bringing everything back full circle. And I said at the very beginning, I've got a bone to pick with you. I'll do it later. So I'm going to pick that bone first, and then let's go into that final question. When you and our brother, Mr. Malloy, argue with me off mic and everything about she's not a very good candidate.
That's not what
and
we
I
say.
Stand
That's
by,
not what we say.
I say that she's very underrated as a candidate. When you watch that debate today, as much as I love Bernie Sanders, I'm so grateful that she was debating him tonight and not Bernie.
Well,
that's not a bad candidate. That's a brilliant, understated candidate.
I think that what you're saying, I think what Michael and I have said in the past is that she's a bad campaigner. I think that in a lot of respects she is a bad campaigner. I think that she's too intellectual and too nuanced. She does not connect with people as well as she should. There are times when she does. I mean, she did much better in the town hall debate than I expected her to do. She can connect with people, but she has to do it in sort of individual one-on-one ways, and it doesn't work when she's communicating to the masses. So what we say necessarily is she's a bad campaigner. Now, I do also think that she's not. Hold on.
And to be fair, that is a very fair point. I said candidate, and you said campaigner.
That is
true. That's fair.
As a candidate, I think that it's hard to explain, but in the real world, if you just look at her on paper and her resume and who she is and what she's done and what she can accomplish, she should be an excellent candidate. But in the world of narratives and what the media can spin and what people are willing to believe, she does not actually make a very good candidate. There are a lot of ways to hit her. A lot of ways to hit her. Donald Trump does not.
Yes, there are.
I'm not done. Donald Trump does not do it in a very dignified way, and that sort of nullifies those. However, if you had a Jeb Bush on the stage or a Mitt Romney on the stage, I believe that Hillary would probably be trailing by 4 or 5 points at this point because they would be better at what they're doing, and Hillary does not make a very strong candidate. She just doesn't.
Is that what it feels like being Trump? Wrong. I think it's quite the opposite. I think the fact that she's able to endure this line of attack from him is actually
I think she's a very strong person. I don't know necessarily that makes her a very strong candidate.
Well, listen, I could argue that that's semantics in a sense, but at the same time, I will have to concede that I did accuse you guys of saying bad candidate, and you guys did say bad campaigner, and I will also concede that those are
two different things.
That's they're not radically different. To be fair.
All right, so let's talk about predictions.
But I will give I will I'm a fair guy. I will concede that I'll have to back off.
Let's talk a little bit about predictions and what's going to happen.
Now let's talk about predictions, and let's do it in our closing homage to the McLaughlin Group fashion. How's that?
Great. Okay, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. Is that good? You know, McLaughlin started that. Trump stole it from McLaughlin.
Wrong. What are your predictions?
Well, the easy prediction is that Hillary is going to win. It's a little bit harder to predict what's going to happen down ballot. I think that at this point, it would be easy to say that Hillary is going to win by a solid 8 or 9 points in the popular vote. It's also possible that she ends up with 365, 370 electoral votes. I haven't really looked at the map in the last couple of days, but I think it's possible to get there. I saw somebody on Morning Joe this morning suggesting that the internal polling, even on the GOP side, was suggesting it was moving in the wrong direction for the GOP, and that she could end up with over 400, and that they could even be down not only in the Senate but in the House of Representatives. I'm not going to go that far, but I do believe that we're going to get to 50-50 in the Senate, and then when Hillary wins and Tim Kaine, the vice president, will be the tiebreaker in the Senate, I think we're going to close the gap considerably in the House of Representatives.
I think that we're going to win this election, and it's going to be by a landslide. I also think that it's going to be a very unique election, because what I think is going to happen is I think Trump is probably going to ultimately win Iowa, maybe still even Ohio, maybe even Florida. And he's still going to get creamed. There's a possibility
that a third-party candidate, Evan McMullin, wins Utah. He's currently leading there.
And if he wins Utah, Trump loses it regardless if Hillary wins it or not. Right? I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. And I think she's going to turn one of these red states. It probably won't be our great state of Texas, probably Arizona, maybe Georgia, right? I think those two are probably a little bit more likely because they just don't have the threshold that Texas has. I mean, this is a very good old boy, powerful network state of Republican representatives. It'll be tough. Nevertheless, there was a great analogy that this is psychological warfare. That her campaign doesn't necessarily think she's going to win Texas per se, but just the fact that she can put a billboard next to the airport that the opponent flies into every day. It was something along those lines that just really struck me. I was like, wow, what a good visual. And even though I butchered it a little bit, I still stand by that because it still resonates. So I think it's going to be an electoral landslide, and I think he's going to turn some states that he actually predicted he would, and he's still going to get creamed. I think Chuck Schumer is going to be our next minority leader, but I don't think we're going to lose the House. I think in the next State of the Union address that you're going to have Hillary Clinton, President Clinton, you're going to have Tim Kaine, you're going to have Paul Ryan, and then you're going to have, in the audience, you're going to have Chuck Schumer as minority leader. That's what I think. Now, it all remains to be seen. And listen, there's still a lifetime to go before Election Day, but early voting has started, and Trump not only needed to win this election or this debate tonight,
knock it out of the park.
It needed to be
a
game changer. And regardless of what you think, if you want to spin this that he won, whatever, but if you say that he knocked it out of the park,
you're delusional. You're living in a bubble.
You're lying to yourself. That's not a matter.
To be honest with you, I'm going to get off of this podcast and I'm going to go get on my phone and I'm going to scroll through my own Twitter bubble and look at all of the liberal progressive people that I follow who are bashing Trump from the debate, and I'm going to laugh. So it's okay for everybody to live in a bubble, but you got to come out of that bubble every once in a while and recognize reality, right? You have to come out of the bubble and recognize reality. Let's talk a little bit about our show. Maybe do a couple of plugs real fast. So, listen, guys, we all started this Left Shoe Politics thing as just a couple of friends. In my case, my wife got tired of me posting so many things on my wall politically and wanted me to have a different outlet for it. And then I sort of just came up with this idea for the show, or this page. And then Jeremy and Malloy started posting on it. I said, man, this thing's so much better with you guys on it. Let's do it together. At the time, we had like 200 followers. We're up to a couple thousand now. We've done very little advertising. We've boosted a few posts here and there, but nothing crazy. And now we've got a good following on Twitter. We've had some insanely amazing guests from our two female guests that we've had. And then having Zaki Husan from HuffPost, and he's also a friend, and he's brilliant. And then to have Matt Makoviak, who I've been tweeting and texting tonight. And Matt is, as you guys know, he is a political commentator and a GOP strategist and a very, very fair guy. Pushed back with him tonight, by the way, for the first time. He thought Trump won this debate. And I said, Matt, we love you, but you're just, with all due respect, sir, you're wrong. And I very rarely would say that. But he is so kind to come back and do a post-election podcast with us. And look, this guy's booking Rachel Maddow and Fox and Friends, and he has no business meddling with a bunch of He was on Chris Hayes today.
He was on Chris Hayes today, and we really appreciate it. And I don't care what your political affiliation is. If you like smart people and good political analysis, follow Matt Makoviak. Follow Zaki Husan, and keep following us. We've got a lot of great things on the horizon. And we're just so proud of what we're doing. We're so grateful for you guys, and just little thing that we are trying to turn into something bigger than we had even imagined. So that's my spiel.
We appreciate you listening to us ramble. You've been on the Left Shoe Politics podcast. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook at Left Shoe Politics. You can find us on Twitter at Left Shoe Politic. We're always rambling about something, so come and join in the conversation, and you'll be getting constant updates from us from now until election time and then post-election as well. We are really happy to have you, and we're open to the conversation. So whether you're conservative, independent, or liberal, please come, chime in. We'll have the debate. We'll have the conversation. You might even get invited on to the show. And we look forward to everything that comes.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the Left Shoe Politics podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Left Shoe Politic, Facebook at facebook.com/Left Shoe Politics. Search for our channel on YouTube, and you can find us on the LSP website, leftshoepolitics.com.